Enjoy a seat at the table and good company, where great conversations and meaningful discussions happen.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz. We all know a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people seated around the table engaging in lively discussions. And Good Company gives you a seat at the table to enjoy smart and important conversations as they happen. I am pleased to be in the company of Jeffrey Roberts and Joshua Smith, teachers at the Fort Wayne School New Tech High School. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
So I first wanted to start with your background and sort of talking to you about being educators and understanding a little bit about New Tech and what it is and how it's different than schools. So first, can you tell me a little bit about yourselves and how you got into teaching and why?
Sure. So I am a ninth grade English teacher. I co-teach with him World Studies, and then I also teach a class called Mass Media, which is where we create videos and look at all kinds of different things, and that's the class that we work with, the Holocaust class that he teaches in. This is my 5th year at New Tech Academy, and I absolutely love it. I started out my teaching career at Bishop Luers and then switched over to New Tech 5 years ago. So it's been pretty awesome. I got into teaching because I really wanted to teach English and liked English, and that's kind of what springboarded me into it all. And then going to New Tech, you do so many different things and wear so many different hats every day. So it's just fun, and I love every second of it. So.
Now, on my end, I've been at New Tech for 9 years now,
Right.
and so 11 years prior to that, I started at Memorial Park, and have always taught something in the realm of social studies, and then in the last 6 years, I've had the opportunity to kind of go from the geography, world history part to then including Holocaust education, current events, and then also a leadership class. The reason I got in education wasn't like, I didn't want to get into education because my mom was an educator, and I actually was trying to do completely the opposite and go into the business world, and got to spend some time in my mom's classroom at Adams Elementary School, and it kind of changed my opinion on like what I should be doing and how I should give back. So I'm glad my mom, who for the longest time told me, oh, you should do it, I didn't want to listen to her, and so glad that I have, because I've been able to work with amazing partners like Josh and Melissa Cox, and I can go down the list of amazing educators that have kind of shaped me. So I'm kind of grateful my mom finally pushed me in that direction.
And truth be told, you are one of the great educators. In 2016, you were recognized as Teacher of the Year, correct?
Yeah.
Within the Fort Wayne Community Schools, right?
Yeah,
So I would say that you're pretty recognized as one of those good educators.
I've been helped by a lot of people, so I would love to give credit to some of the people that I've been around for many, many years.
Right.
Sally
But isn't
Butler.
that the nature of teaching and what teachers actually do?
Absolutely. And I think if we're getting recognized not to essentially what we're doing in the classroom all the time with the rigor, I think in the relevance, I think a lot of it with Josh and I has to do with relationships. So if I received an award for Teacher of the Year, I'm hoping it was based on the relationships that, I was building or those around me were building with the students, not so much what was being taught in the classroom, but how, how the real world applies to things.
So let's talk before, we are going to spend some time talking about how your involvement with Holocaust education and your relationship with the Federation in terms of its Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance programs. But I want to start with understanding about New Tech and what it is and how is it different than other schools?
Well, it's quite different. So, coming from a totally traditional type setting, when I switched over to New Tech, it was a learning experience for me. It is not your typical high school at all. Everything's project-based. So a lot of people think that it's like this tech type school, and that's not really the case at all. It's project-based. So the kids
But it is STEM. I mean, it is focused on the STEM discipline, right?
Kinda
Okay.
to an extent.
Okay.
But it focuses on kids collaborating
Okay.
in groups, parts by themselves in groups, whatever, to create something bigger. So
Okay.
it's not focusing necessarily on, today we're going to write a paper, tomorrow we're going to read this book, whatever, but more combining all of those things together into a cohesive project that then they actually produce something. So like some of the projects that we've done, producing, the kids will produce a business, the kids will produce artwork. The kids will produce some sort of plan for the city or whatever. So something much bigger than just writing a paper or doing a book report or
so
something
it has
like
this
that.
interdisciplinary approach.
Very much so.
But the idea is that it's part of Wayne High School.
Yes.
So it's a school within a school. It's like a magnet school,
Correct.
right? And it was started in 2009, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And so, but the idea of it is that it was designed to give students a competitive advantage and I guess prepare them for the real world. So let's take a moment and say, why is there a need and why was there a need for this type of program in the Fort Wayne Community Schools?
I think employers want employees that can do multiple things, and especially be 21st century ready. Like when it comes to not only being good with written expression or oral communication skills, or can you apply your knowledge like in any kind of realm, not just in the classroom. I think the biggest one is the two that a lot of times the teachers in our school focus on is collaboration and then agency.
Okay.
Like, do you seek feedback? Do you seek challenges? Are you looking for some impact? Have you reached out to people to get their feedback on things? So I think essentially businesses in our community, we're looking at why should we come to the Fort Wayne area if you're just getting book, smart.
Right.
Are you applying those things in, like Josh said, real world situations? Are you making things authentic? So kids can tie, I know it's a crazy application, but can you tie some kind of standards that you're learning from Indiana and can you apply it to something that they can see working in the current 21st century?
Sure.
So I think the goal was more of like, how do we get kids more ready for trades, military, not necessarily college every single time, but trying to get kids ready for every situation.
Okay.
Being explorers, being active explorers is a lot of times what we try to push is, are you trying to make a connection or are you just reading from the book and putting an answer down? So I think I think the goal of New Tech wasn't just to be kids, like Josh said, don't be just tech ready, but be work ready, be classroom ready, be life ready.
Truly well-rounded.
Yes.
Right, and it's part of this New Tech Network model.
Yes.
So there's over 200 of them in U.S. and Australia,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And it was started by the Gates Foundation, right? And the whole idea is that it's to create problem solvers and then this project-based learning. Okay, but I have to push back a little bit on this project-based learning. Because when I was in business school, you have to do these group projects and stuff. And I always found that there was always one or two in the group that does everything. And then, the others just coast along. And I, I'm not so sure that, especially with high school kids, who try to get away with a lot, do you think, and I don't necessarily sometimes feel that you need, collaboration, like sometimes it gets in your way. So tell me how you deal with this idea.
Okay, so it's awesome that you asked that question, because parents, when they first look into our school,
Yep.
Josh would
That's
tell
their
you the
biggest
biggest
concern.
fear is,
Yep.
am I sending a kid to school where Josh can carry the weight of the entire group, or my kid has to carry the entire weight of the group, like you were saying?
Right.
So 6 years ago, Stanford University created a set of rubrics, okay, and it was based on certain domains, okay, and so instead of grading F to A, you're grading from emerging to advanced.
Okay.
And under each one of those categories, instead of Josh and I writing good work or hey, love the way that your grammar or your language and conventions was good, now all of a sudden we're using a rubric that says proficient means that you did these bullets, okay?
Okay.
So then we kind of looked at our model of assessment 7-8 years ago and was like, exactly what you were saying was happening, is that we could have a kid really carrying a group. So we applied the rubrics, and what ended up happening is Josh and I were getting individually graded based on the rubrics within their collaborative group. We also are holding each other accountable using what we call collaboration rubrics. So when they're done with the project, I essentially am assessing myself, but I'm also assessing my group members.
Right. So you do like the 360.
Yeah, and,
Yes.
and a lot of us, don't get me wrong, we still do summative, informative assessments, like even though we're project-based learning.
Well, you give quizzes.
Yeah,
and
we do a lot with pre and post, like
Right.
what do you know coming into it and what do you
Right.
know coming out of it. So there is a lot of individualized learning. What I would have to kick back on that too is, and maybe Josh can piggyback off the workshop idea, is instead of doing these these lectures where you're just teachers are talking and talking and talking, that we're actually providing workshops. And I don't know if you want to dig into that.
So the workshops that we do are kind of similar to like a lecture type style, but we also have them very interactive, and the kids are throwing things out there or whatever. But if you, like when we give a pre-test or a post-test or something, if you pass things and you already know them, you don't necessarily need to go to the workshop because you already know that information.
Right.
So not necessarily all of our workshops are mandatory where all the kids have to go all the time. They could be with certain groups. We split them up sometimes where he'll be doing a workshop in the room and I'll be doing a workshop in the room totally different, then we'll flip the kids. So they're getting both elements of it, but not necessarily at the same time. Workshops are smaller. They focus on a very specific topic. And then the kids are still gaining that information, gaining the knowledge that we need them to learn based on the standards or whatever else. But it's not us standing in front of the room talking for the whole period.
Well, you're the model that this is student-led learning, and that it's more that you're going that the teachers are the facilitators.
100%.
Where you're there to facilitate them learning and guiding them. But, okay, but I got to ask another question where you talk about sometimes it is appropriate that there is a teacher in the front of the classroom lecturing, and there is some things that you just need to sit down to a book and learn and practice and have exercises. And so especially what I am always afraid about with this whole focus on STEM, and that we're losing all of these key things from the liberal arts and like English and reading, and that's where you get critical thinking is by reading and analyzing a text and then writing about it. And so I'm curious, like when you come up with these projects, so how does it work? So like, do you pick do you two come together and say, okay, we're gonna do this class, right? So like, we'll take the Holocaust project, and we'll take the one that you won a New Tech Network award for the best in the world, right? It was in 2020 for the program you did in 2018, 2019 with the Violins of Hope, which was the big initiative that they had here, where they brought these violins that were owned or performed on by individuals that were persecuted and killed in the Holocaust or survived the Holocaust. So, okay, so you have been working with the Federation for several years through your Holocaust class, because one, in Indiana, you have to teach the Holocaust at some point, right? That's required, right? But that's a whole nother, right?
That's a whole nother conversation.
So, okay, so then you found out that they were going to have this big Violins of Hope program, and it was the largest collaboration with like 36 different organizations throughout the city. So you're like, okay, we're going to do something with our students in our project-based learning. So who comes up with the project and everything?
Okay, so
can of worms here, but
okay, so the cool thing is, like, Josh and I sat down prior to the Violins of Hope coming in. We wanted to do
we didn't
something.
even have a clue they were coming.
We didn't have a clue they were coming, so we had the idea of doing something with music, how music impacted the Holocaust. Did it provide hope? Did it provide persecution? Because if you look at some of the music Hitler like shut down was mostly what he called degenerate music. So he would use it to perform in front of himself, but then wouldn't allow, I can go on and on. Okay, so Josh and I wanted to look at how music could do those things. So we went to Jackie and we went to the Federation and said, hey, we got an idea of thinking about the music topic, and all of a sudden it was, hey, let's bring in Jim Palermo. And all of a sudden we had
the Philharmonic, because they were working together to bring these violins.
They weren't. But the cool part is they didn't start thinking about bringing the violins until we brought the idea up, which is really cool. Because so what Josh and I do, and every teacher at New Tech, we almost backload. So we look at what we want the end product to be, and then we work
backwards to get.
So the scaffolding comes from this big picture idea. And so we go through, I would bore you with all this, but we go through what is called Critical Friends. And so we bring a project idea to the whole staff. And it's called phase 1. And then the staff, like, oh, we love this. They call likes and wonders. Like, I like this, I wonder if, and it provides you with the chance.
Sounds like you all are trying to build the ideal business, likes and
Okay.
wonders,
So-
and, being so supportive.
Yeah.
And you probably in meetings you'll be like, well, I want to build on that
No,
idea.
but the problem is what we do is we build, like, a lot of the ideas that most of us get in our classroom start with this little brainchild thing, and all of a
Right.
sudden the input of others then became, and I can give you, like, some of the teachers in our room, we decided to do a cross-curricular thing where it was journalism class and it was psychology and sociology, only because Josh and I took the mass media Holocaust class and said, hey, we got this idea, what do you think? And other teachers were like, oh, let's be
We
a
can
part of
include
this.
this. We can include
So
this.
Okay.
to
Yeah.
be honest with you, a lot of times it's the risk-taking of the facilitator
Okay.
that starts the project
Okay.
idea. But sometimes it's even the approach of some people in Fort Wayne will come to us and say, maybe you talk about
let
the
me
project
just
you're doing
let me
now.
just step back 1 second, because you talk about how you collaborate. So do you two, do you have other teacher partners for other projects, or are you two put together and then because you see these kids through the 4 years, or?
So it kind of depends. So we're together with a class called World Studies, which is English 9 and then Geography, History of the World.
Okay. So
Those-
that's an interdisciplinary.
Correct.
Yes.
That we do that with all the freshmen.
Okay.
So we're in charge of all those guys.
So you
Then-
have every freshman, and the school only has 400
Correct.
students,
True.
right?
Yeah,
So
so
about
we
100.
teach-
Okay.
Yeah, we teach
Right.
100 freshmen.
Okay.
Then his Holocaust class is a standalone class. My mass media class is a standalone class.
Okay.
Journalism standalone.
Okay.
Psychology standalone.
Okay.
So then we combined our two classes because we already work together all the time. So we're like, this seems like a perfect fit that we can, make something happen between these two courses. When we brought it to the staff, that's when all the others jumped
Okay.
in and were like, hey, we can include
But,
something here.
okay, but was this unique to this start with this Violins of Hope project, or does this happen all the
No.
time?
No, we're like when we first started at New Tech, it was kind of understood
Yeah.
that you have to. It was super awkward. I don't know. Josh could speak on the same thing, but you're coming. I taught for 11 years, so
Yeah.
I'm walking in. I'm the man. Like
Yeah.
Josh is
Yeah.
the man.
Right.
Like
Same.
we've done this
Yeah.
for a long time, and all of a sudden, you roll a project idea out to your colleagues, who we do feel like family at New Tech, and that
Right,
is
and
not
that is
a lot.
very big thing.
And yeah,
that
a
you-
huge deal. And I think your ego doesn't get crushed, but it's almost like, hold on a minute, like this isn't right. And then you get used to getting feedback. So ultimately, you're almost like a student in our
Yeah.
school where you're one-on-one conferencing feedback.
When I first came to the school, it was weird. Like I'm used to doing my own thing.
Right.
And
Well, you
running
have
my
your
own room
lesson
and nothing.
plans,
Yeah.
and then you have the,
And then
you have
I
the
go-
matrix of what you have to teach.
Right.
Right.
And then I go in and everyone's like giving me all these ideas and giving me all this feedback that I'm supposed to take that and change everything I'm doing. And I'm
Right.
like, what is going on here? But you
Yeah.
get so used to it and you get so used to hearing it, it's just like second nature.
So then the students, so do they take, they have to take this English and like the freshmen?
So
Okay.
every single grade level has a class where there's
It's
two
co-taught.
co-taught.
Okay.
So, for instance, it's World Studies. Their freshman year, their sophomore year, it's Biolit, where it's biology and literature.
Right.
And then their junior year, it's American Studies, where it's U.S. history in 11.
Right.
Okay. And then their senior year, it's called Civic Studies, where it's 3 classes rolled in one. It's Gov, Econ, and English 12.
Okay.
12.
But the kids still at New Tech can take. I mean, they can
Well,
take
they still have to
AP
take
classes.
math. They
can
still have to take,
dual
right,
credit.
languages.
Yep.
They still have
So-
to meet all the other
So are
requirements. that every
those
other high schooler.
are those traditional classes, or can you
Okay,
do
great
like
question.
can you do like a government class in Spanish, or you combine, learning about
Funny you asked. When I first started at New Tech, it was myself and Melissa Cox, and it was World Studies, but it was Spanish 1 and Geography, History of the World. So imagine trying to create projects with those two classes. It really stretched what
Yeah.
we were doing. But what Josh and I and Beth and Marcy, and I can go down the list, there's always an anchor.
Okay.
So like the anchor in World Studies is social studies, but everything Josh does with, you were asking before, like kids, we load their agendas up with articles that they can read and have to read, depends on, how far they are. So Josh matches reading comp, literature. I can go on and on. He
And-
picks books that go along with what we're
Right.
doing. So it's
Kind of the cool thing too, that like what you were talking about, that they need some of these
Yeah,
traditional
yeah.
type things. It's applying those traditional type things to a real world situation where they
Okay.
have to use it for the project, rather than we're just doing this to do it, more
Okay.
or less. So it works really, really well, and it's pretty seamless. Kind of our goal in World Studies is that the kids don't know that I'm the English teacher and he's the geography
Right.
teacher.
That we both
That
do
we
the
both,
same.
yeah. that
But
we-
so do you, okay, so let's go back to using the violins of hope. So you had this idea about music, and then you reached out to the community, and then they found out these violins. But who comes up with what the project is going to be?
Depends. Like what's really neat, and I can we'll just do that one because we're talking about it. But it was neat because at that point, Josh and I and Cheyenne before Josh, we did an art project with St. Francis, and so St. Francis art students were in our classroom, like no joke, for a month.
Every day.
Like.
Yeah.
And so
this
all
was
of a sudden,
for World Studies that they were in the room.
Yeah. Prior to the January meeting that year, I went to Emily and a couple other of the St. Francis students. I go, how crazy would it be if we just maybe take old instruments and like tear them apart? And they're like, oh my gosh, we could do that. And I'm like, no, like seriously? Like, and they're like, yeah. So they actually went back and like took apart a violin, took apart a trumpet, and turned it into an art piece. And then that's when we knew we could roll it out with the students. So I think a lot of times it starts off as our idea, but it completely changes every single year. Like our blueprint project.
What is a blueprint project?
Okay, it's the Don't Move, Improve project, where at one point it was the mayor's office asking for students, young adults' feedback on what should be brought to Fort Wayne when it comes to structures or ideas or festivals or whatever.
Right.
And it morphed into them redesigning the whole downtown area to where then we're meeting with Paul Spoloff, we're meeting with Cindy Joyner, and all of a sudden we're meeting with Carl Bandemer, and they're going, what if you do this? And then we're like, what if we do this?
And so we just try it.
Yeah, so we try it, and if it blows up in our face, the good part is at the end of every project, our kids actually do Critical Friends with us, where they're like, Robert, Smith, they call him Smitty. I like that we did this, but I wonder how you can do this different next year.
Okay.
So the projects from World Studies to Civic Studies to any class that we have, AP Gov, they do projects too. And
so, all right, so let's continue with the Violins of Hope project. So the University of St. Francis students who were working with the students, they said, why don't we take apart the instruments? And then they took apart, and then they created these art projects. Okay, so I think, yeah, I would love to go to school where I get to do art projects and create things, but where's also the structure of learning, like the writing of the papers, or looking at the history of degenerate art or music, or what happened to a lot of people during the Holocaust, or why did the Holocaust happen? And so how do you incorporate all of that into this project?
So kind of a cool thing, his Holocaust class, see, my mass media class is totally separate from his class, so we didn't do all of that research. But what his class did was they did a ton of research on all this music and how music affected and everything. Then they presented all of their ideas to my class to teach them about all these ideas, because they didn't have a clue and they didn't know what they were doing with this project at all. So really, we used his students as kind
almost
of
like a client who came in
absolutely,
and said, right.
Absolutely, and that's kind of how I like to structure my class anyway.
And then do you get to pick the students who work in the groups, or do they get to self?
It kind of depends. It kind of depends on the project. So sometimes we provide a survey beforehand, and then they fill it out, and then we group them based on their survey results. Sometimes we let them pick their own groups, which sometimes can be a disaster and sometimes can be a really good success because they're used to each other. But a lot of times they're just put in a group. For the one that we did with the Violins of Hope, the Instruments of Hope project, is we actually took one student from journalism, one student from psychology, sociology, one from his mass media, and one from my class.
And
So my group got to educate all three of those classes on the impact of music during the Holocaust, but they also laid out research of concentration camps, how the persecution looked, so that history you're talking about. Then the journalism class did the part of the feelings, emotions included in it, and then Josh's class looked at.
We did the audiovisual aspects of it.
Right.
So we try to tie those together, but you asked about the writing and things like that. I'm glad you asked, because a lot of times people think that we do these projects and that's all they're working on during the project, and that's absolutely not true. We do things called IACS, which is Individualized Assessment of Knowledge and Thinking, where they do writing. So a lot of what we did is look at the history of the Holocaust and then specifically music, and then eventually Josh was kind of getting into a little bit. We jigsaw a lot.
What does
Where
that mean?
jigsaw means, you know, if Josh and I are in a class, there's 24 of us, we take 24 different topics. I share out
And
one
teach
of those.
the rest of the
I
class.
do teach backs. So it's almost like they're, like you said before, when our first director, Liz Bryan, was there, she always used to say, own your own learning. Like if you're a student, own your own learning.
Right, well, 'cause
but
kids
then you can also, you know, if you're really into a topic, Josh was getting into workshops earlier, like if Josh is super into, you know, how music, the degenerate music looked like during the Holocaust, he goes, hey, can I lead a workshop? And as a teacher, you're like, okay, how can I support you?
Right.
So there is a lot of reading, writing, test taking during the projects. The projects normally, like Josh would tell you, in the Holocaust class, there was 3 projects from January until June.
Okay.
So you weren't overwhelming them with these overall big, like, hey, we're going to do 6 projects. There's no way you could fit that
Right.
in and then also get what you're asking, how you getting the curriculum taught,
Right.
how you getting the standards taught.
Right. And then, but I mean, how do you grade? You can't really grade them on an A through F system, can you? I mean, or you can.
You can. We've kind of given a number to all
Okay.
the elements on the rubric, so that way
Okay.
we can still give them an A to
Okay.
F type
Okay.
grade. But really, what's more important to them is where they fall in that rubric, and they want to keep growing.
Okay.
Their growth is important to them.
And so I'm going to ask you about the whole overall new tech approach to learning. I'm going to ask you to evaluate the same student task with self-reflection that you asked them. So what's the big takeaway that you've learned from this type of learning for students? Does it work? Is it effective? Is it, why, if so, why isn't it incorporated into more classrooms?
I think that it's extremely effective because it puts all of the learning toward the kid. The
Okay.
kid is responsible for that, him or herself.
Okay.
And we're just facilitating that. Like you said earlier, we're
Right.
the facilitators, and that's kind of where we're looking at this from. And I feel like when the students are really engaged in what they're learning and really putting forth effort towards themselves and what they need to learn, but also at the same time helping their groups or whatever else, they're going to learn so much more. Yeah. And when they put forth that effort and really engage and really care about what they're learning, that's when that deep learning really happens.
2 things that I would say, and I'll save the best one for last, but what Josh is saying, imagine if you have the mayor in your audience for something you just learned about. We have noticed that kids are way more engaged when there's an outcome that there are people from our community involved.
Right. Well, that's
You know
what
what I'm saying? Yeah, so-
I mean, if there's a payoff, like that their story could get published, or they're
Right.
gonna that somebody
Right.
in the mayor's office or the city planner is gonna listen to it, or
Yeah.
they could present their business idea. Sure.
Yeah, and
I mean,
imagine a lot of the kids that unfortunately are not good test takers and maybe they're not good writers.
Right.
Most of our classrooms, we do a lot of one-on-one conferencing where you're hearing from the kid to know that they understand what you're saying. So
Right.
a lot of times in classrooms, you're basing everything off what you get on paper and not necessarily all the other different avenues to
Right.
notice if they really do understand something. But I think new tech is more than just like the curriculum, the standards, it's culture. Like
100% culture.
Like I think what happens is when you're doing trust, respect, responsibility, and you're teaching kids that. I mean, imagine you as a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old, and you walk into a high school and there's no locks on your locker.
right.
What? Like,
It
that's
freaks you out a
kind of
little bit.
crazy. But our school has no locks on their locker, and we have had
Zero issues
zero
with theft.
issues with that. And it's because I think when you provide kids with an environment
Right.
that you are to be an active explorer, you are to respect those around you, and you're supposed to build culture. Now, don't get me wrong, we still have discipline issues, but I think we have less because the kids are owning every single aspect of their day.
They also hold each other very accountable.
Right.
And if somebody is doing something that is not following trust, respect, responsibility, they will call you out on it.
And when you talk about this idea of family, I mean, what I sort of felt when I'm, I haven't seen it in action, but when I'm reading and
Yeah, you
thinking
need to come
about
over
it,
and see it.
You do.
is this idea that, I mean, you live, eat, and breathe there. Like, it's a real commitment from the teachers.
Absolutely.
And so, but I'm also wondering that it's also a real commitment from your families and the students. Like, because what is your average day? So you start at, what time does school start?
School starts we have to be there at 8:20.
Okay, and what time, and then if this whole idea of family and that you're really involved and there for each other, what time does your day end?
Well, the school day ends at
Right.
4:20.
Right, the school day ends at
But
4:20.
I'm not ever gonna I'll never, because I've seen every classroom, like whether it's high school classroom, elementary school, middle
Right.
school classroom. Both of us have been in all kinds of different ones. The amount of work and effort it takes to build a project, and then to grade during the project, and to have conversations, like outside of school. A lot of our kids contact us because we have immediate families, and the kids
Right.
contact us outside of school, like, hey, can you look over this? I would tell you, Josh and I have probably written 40 to 50 college recommendations already this year.
Yep.
And so a lot
And
of
that's
the
every year.
kids, yeah. So I would like to say, when you leave at 4:20,
No,
you
you're not
leave,
leaving. No.
you're
You
not
don't leave.
leaving.
And how do
But
and how does your family? I mean, you have little kids, right?
Yep.
So they probably see the value of education. But how do you? Is it that, like, if you're a teacher at New Tech, you're all in, and your family has to
So-
be all in, and you're,
To some extent, yes. But like, and both of us do this. But when I go home, it's family time until my kids go to bed. And I do not do schoolwork until they're in bed. And I mean, even on weekends, I don't work until they're in bed typically, just because that's my time with my family,
Right,
and
okay.
I'm not giving that up.
okay.
But then I'm up late working or up early working every single day, because there's just not enough time in the day to
Right.
get everything done that we have to
Right.
get done.
And no matter if you have a co-teacher or not.
Yeah.
So if we call them singletons.
Right.
So like Dave Flesh is a singleton. He has all day, he's by himself. I can't tell you how many times he and I will text each other outside of school about something that, hey, I'm looking through this, will you look through this? Dave will say, hey, I got a project idea, would you check this over? Hey, so the commitment doesn't end.
No.
But I think the cool part is that I think the kids would fight for us if we asked them to. I think the kids would run through a brick wall if we asked them
Absolutely.
to, because they know we do the same thing. Now, us teachers have learned a way of, like he said, family first,
Right.
school second, or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
whatever. But make sure that the kids see the commitment that you have, because I think their working class builds off of the commitment that
Right.
that
But
all
I
of
think
us
also
have.
a lot of this fuels from the relationship you two have. I mean, and are all these teachers having this dynamic? And,
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, yes.
and do you get to pick? Do you pick your co-teacher or no?
Actually, like, this is nothing against Josh, but I was worried that him and I working together, we had the same mentality.
Yes.
And before, the co-teachers I was with, Cheyenne Straub, Melissa Cox, Andy, they were managers. They like time organization. Josh doesn't, and neither do I. So
Yeah.
we were like, oh man,
What are we
but
gonna
it's
do?
worked. But the crazy thing is, I can say this and no lie, that our staff is this dysfunctional
Well, they say
family
right.
that has our, like,
It's like
there's so
controlled
much
chaos?
teasing. Yeah,
It
controlled
is.
chaos.
That's
That's
perfect.
what they say.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next question is, because you came in, you were both in the traditional classroom model with, standing in front of the classroom, there's a lesson. So what do you think you know now that you didn't know before about teaching and engaging, especially high school age kids?
So, me personally, looking back at the way that I used to teach, was not teaching. That's 100% what I can say.
What would you say
Um,
it was?
I don't know. It was throwing knowledge at them and hoping that it sticks.
Okay.
Honestly.
Okay.
And now I totally see, like, immersing them into the community, getting as many community members involved as possible that are giving them real world examples, having them present to real people versus just the class or me. Giving them opportunities to excel in areas that, I never even dreamt possible when I was teaching in a traditional setting, has made me just see, my eyes have been completely open to the possibilities that they're endless. I mean, anything that I want to try, I can do. And anything the kids want to try, they can do. And I just can't, I don't see an end to it, and I just see how amazing it really is, to be honest.
I'm going to let you answer this question, then I want to ask follow-up, but go ahead.
It's funny because I thought I was doing PBL
What is
before
PBL?
project-based learning.
Okay.
I thought I was doing that at Memorial Park. I was like, oh man, I was doing hands-on activity. No, it's a lot different. I think it encourages risk-taking, but it also, and I'm hoping community watches this because he knows I'm constantly asking community to be a part of the classroom. But
They better be watching.
so the expertise that they have, like yesterday, I'm not very good with finances and budgets. To have the small business
That's
community,
uh-huh.
yeah, Wes Shy and Nikki and Scott, like they came into the classroom to work with our kids on how to create a budget. I didn't have to do that. Josh had someone come in to show him how to do a proper, marketing, resumes.
Right. So was
I
this
think
part of a project? What's the project? What was the project they're working on?
The project they're working on right now in World Studies is called Mind Your Business.
Okay.
And they have to create a business themselves that would fit into Fort Wayne's market, basically.
Okay,
And then
so
people
they
would
had to-
ask how does business have to do with any kind of curriculum for geography, history of the world? And so what we did is we teach tourism, recreation, sports, and hobbies, which is a standard in Indiana. And then we tweak it to create a business that has to do with those things.
Okay.
And make it for Fort Wayne.
Okay.
And get the advice of all these people,
Right.
and it
Right.
ends up.
Well, a perfect example would be to look at White Rock Recreation in Wabash that Parker Beecham created, which was a whole right along the river there. He created whether you can rent canoes and or you know with the bicycles here.
Yes.
So okay, so they are doing everything from learning to start a business, right?
Yes.
So they had to come up with the idea, then they got to
demographics.
they have to-
So we had, like Josh and I decided, so we, we
I
could
know.
go on forever.
I could go forever.
So in new tech schools, there's 6 non-negotiables, and I'm not going to talk about all of them.
Okay.
But one of them is a contract. And so at the beginning of a project, every group has a contract. And in the contract are roles. So as we go, we all learn the same thing, but then eventually when the project turns, Josh is the budget manager, I'm the architect, someone's the business
Right.
manager,
Somebody's
somebody's
marketing.
the marketing director.
Right.
But then we're also held accountable by 6 things that the group decide on. So if Josh decides every time that we have a group conversation, he's going to put his earbuds in, and that's one of our 6, he can get a check. And after 3 warnings, there's a teacher conversation. So it's almost like real world. So
It's like these,
so it's interesting how far.
And is that effective? I mean, do the
Extremely.
kids really?
They hold each other accountable 100%. And I mean, there's kids that have already been like, he's not paying attention on Zoom right now. I would like to give him a mark. And we're like, okay.
Yeah, and then coming from your peers. If Josh were to say
Right.
something to me,
Right.
that would mean a lot. So
Yes.
if I'm getting something from my peers instead of from my facilitator or teacher,
Especially at the age they're
it's
at right now.
yeah,
Okay.
especially you don't.
And do you think that this kind of learning, because you were talking about how kids, there is a difference that kids learn different ways. Like I say, some kids are visual learners, some are audio learners. Some need hands-on. So do you think that this type of project interdisciplinary really feeds into the different ways that students learn?
I feel like we cover the gamut with it. So we try and do all of those things pretty much every day.
So why aren't more schools in Fort Wayne?
I think they're moving towards that.
Yes.
Though. I think because to be honest with you, there's a fear. I think sometimes as an educator, I'm giving up some of my control to. And I don't know where this is headed. A lot of times we don't know where our projects are headed. If you see the art that the kids are doing for this current project,
Right.
you'll go, whoa.
So
how did you?
So last year's what project?
Yeah, this
so
is the
this
Liberation
is
Art
the
Project,
Yom
yeah.
HaShoah. So last year, 2020, was the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the concentration camps. So the idea was that the students were going to create projects around liberators,
Yeah.
right? So so do you then say to the students just like I outlined it, and say, okay, so we're going to do projects. So is it what ideas do you have around this, or do you give them a framework in which to create projects?
So at New Tech, it's kind of interesting. This is another piece of the New Tech formula, I guess. But you start each project with some sort of an entry event.
Okay.
So it's something that we do or we put on or we show or something that make the kids start thinking about this topic.
Okay.
And then there's usually an entry document, which gives them some information that they have to go through and pull out what pieces they can
Okay.
kind of understand what they're going to do and what they don't know what they're doing yet.
Okay.
Then we do knows and need to knows, which is where they put those items in a chart, basically. We don't answer the need to knows right away. We let them sit on those for a while, and then hopefully throughout the project, as we're going through the scaffolding, going through the different elements of the project, they gain the knowledge of those need to knows and they answer them
So
themselves.
there is, it sounds like there is a very structured kind of process evaluation, like almost a curriculum that you sort of measure, the process, how they move along in a project, and what.
Yeah, we call them benchmarks.
Yes.
So
Well, it's like in
Yeah.
work, it's milestones.
Yeah,
You have to achieve
exactly.
certain
Exactly.
milestones.
Yes.
Right.
But the cool part is, we have a driving question, and it's very open-ended.
Yes.
So where I was going to that fear of a teacher not knowing what direction, and this is where you base the question on, like, I don't know where they're going with. Josh doesn't know where they're going with the projects half the time. Like, we're going, oh my gosh, what are they going to need? And like, there's a lot of times he and I, the kids will say, can we have a workshop on this? And I'm like, sure, tomorrow. And then I
Because
go home and build it.
we
or
have to
Josh-
make it over
yeah.
the night.
Right.
So a lot of us teachers at New Tech are building stuff based around what the kids want to know or need to know.
And then do you, because it's a network of these, 200 schools, so can you, is there like a database where you can go and see if anyone has taught something
Yeah.
similar
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
pull
there
from
is.
it?
There
it's
is.
cool. It's cool because this is a good question you asked. But with a couple of the Holocaust projects that I was doing in class, there was a school in Cleveland that asked if they could borrow my project idea. We have teams in Florida and Texas that are using our culture projects that we're doing in school. So, there's a huge database through the network. Once a year, there's a huge conference that people go to, and they get to talk about their ideas. And there's a lot of collaboration
Yep.
back and forth from groups all over the place.
And how many classes of students do you have a day?
We have 6 a day and then one planned period.
Okay, and then the 6 a day, but you have 2-hour blocks, right, for your.
Go ahead.
So for world study, for co-taught classes, they're blocks. So
Okay.
so we have one class in the morning that's 1-2, and then we have one class in the afternoon that's 6-7.
Okay.
So that's one class together,
Okay.
but it's that block class, so it's 2
Okay.
periods taken up, and then we both have 2 electives.
50 minutes.
Yeah, 50.
And
50
those
minutes
are where
apiece.
you teach. So you're mainly the world history, social study,
Yeah,
right?
I do. I have the World Studies with Josh 2 times a day, and then I have the Holocaust education class, and then it's kind of broke up. It's nice because you talked earlier about Holocaust education in Indiana.
Right.
Like we get to teach a whole semester of it,
Right,
and
which is very rare.
Yeah, which is very rare. And then I have a leadership and civics class that I teach that falls in the model of current events. So that's my 2 classes. So yeah, they all center around social studies, but I could also teach English and I could also
Okay.
teach science if they really
Right.
wanted me to.
And so then yours are also around other English
Yeah,
electives?
so I have
or-
the mass media courses, are the other 2 courses that I teach, and they're similar
Right.
in what we're doing in them, but different. We have different projects. So
And don't you think that not only is the New Tech method, I guess, or not only challenging the students, but it's also challenging the teachers, because typically what teachers want is, usually you teach the same class
Sure.
just 6 times a day. I mean, or you
Sure.
teach 3, you have 1 class and then 3 of the other. But you already have, the lesson plans. But this sounds like every week you don't know. I mean, you sort of know where you want to get, where you're starting and where the end point
Yes.
is, but you don't necessarily know how you're going to get there, right?
We come up with calendars for everything that we do. Calendars run our lives basically, but those are very changeable. And
Fluid and organic.
absolutely. And so we'll sit down and come up with a week's plan of exactly what we want to do each day. And then on Tuesday, we're changing the rest of the week
Right.
because it didn't happen on Monday.
But is that hard? Because partly also students need to know that, okay, you need to, I mean, I'm thinking about when I went to school, you had certain things you needed to read because you're going to have a test on Friday, or you have a paper due on Friday. And is that, I mean, they do need
Yeah,
some
they do.
structure.
They have that, and
Yes.
like our math classes are more problem-based
Right.
learning instead of project-based learning. So don't get me wrong. Like our math classes follow Agile Minds. Okay, they go in a flow. That's very different. Now they do projects, but not as many.
Right.
Okay.
And so don't get me wrong. Like we make it sound like, oh, we get to do whatever we want. We don't. Science classes are held to a certain standard. If like ISTEP, when
Right.
the traditional testing
Right.
was done, like Biolit, you could ask Marcy or Beth, and all of a sudden they're teaching half a semester just focused around what's on the test,
Right,
and then
which
their
is-
projects take a backseat. So it kind of depends on,
So you have to sometimes fit into the
yeah,
frame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do Project Lead the Way with some of the classes, like
Right.
Which it has to follow
CEA
certain
has to
things.
follow, yeah, AP
Right.
classes
AP
do
classes.
credit.
Right.
But what Josh said is funny because last night we spent over an hour just looking at tomorrow.
Right.
You know, because we couldn't figure out, like, how do we not overwhelm the kids, but also get what we need taught in a certain amount of time. And it's funny that because all of us at New Tech are very particular about how things should go, and then all of a sudden when it wrecks, then all of a
Right.
sudden we're like, and then we figure it out. But it takes a lot of, like, asking of kids. We ask kids, like, are you overwhelmed? And they're like, yeah. And so we're like,
We
how
try
do
and
we
change
back
things
off?
up based
Yeah.
on that.
To
But
see.
at the same time, we have, like, for our current business project,
Right.
the final business pitches are April 16th.
No matter what.
We
No matter
we
what.
cannot change
Right,
that.
right.
So we have to figure out what could we move, what can we shift, and still fit into that April 16th time.
Or they have to learn how to adjust their time and
Right.
put more to it.
Correct.
Because when you have people involved from the community, there's no
Well, no,
changing.
because when you have a deadline and you have a, you
Yes.
cannot go to your client and say, sorry, I
Correct.
can't get it to you. I
Right.
mean, so the other thing, one of the other things you ask when you're evaluating after these projects is, what would you do differently? So if you now had to go back into a traditional high school class, what are the key things, or what are the things that you would tell a teacher or would do differently?
If I went back into a traditional setting, I don't think I would teach traditionally. I would still teach the same way that I am now, just because I see how much better it is. And even if I'm the only person in the school doing that, I would still do that.
And what do you, and when you have meet your friends or the other teachers at Wayne High School, and what do you tell them that you do differently, or what they?
Yeah, that's a tough question because most people that talk to us say we'd love to do some of this, but then there's a restriction on how curriculum has to be done. So
Right.
that's a little different. We get a little bit more freedom at New Tech to do some of the things that we're
Right.
doing. So to be honest with you, like the flow, I like the fact that a lot of my teachers that are in traditional classrooms now are actually like
Starting
trying
to
things
do this, yes.
and doing what they think is crazy, because at first I thought it was crazy too.
Right.
And so did Josh and everybody at New Tech. But I think you're going to see more of the manipulating of the classroom method in the next 5 to 10 years.
And
And
do you
that's
think-
whether it's Fort Wayne Community Schools or Northwest
Wherever.
Allen or whatever. I think you're starting to see teachers go, you know what? If I try to get these things to happen in my classroom, and I know it seems like, from top down in Fort Wayne Community Schools, it seems like, from the superintendent down, it looks like they want these things to happen more in the classroom. So I think if teachers are supported in taking risk and making mistakes and doing those things,
Right.
I think people will be more willing to do those things. But I'm like Josh. I don't think I would go back to traditional.
Do you think also, though, that is there any flaw? Like, I sometimes worry when we so much, like even with higher education, when we so focus on the job and getting the job, and you're teaching for the real world, but there is some sense of knowledge for the sake of knowledge and becoming a well-educated and informed person. So is there any flaws to the fact that you really are constantly pushing that it's, for the real world? I mean, is there, is that ever an issue or a concern, or?
Well, I think in the past it was like
Yeah.
80 to, like, you were trying to get 80 to 90% of your classroom to college.
Right.
And I think that's not even close anymore. I would
Right.
say 40 to 50% of your classroom going off, to those. So what are you truly prepping
Right.
the kids for?
Right.
Are you prepping them for a path they don't want to go down?
Right.
Or are you prepping them for what they may be interested in doing? I think that's a total different conversation.
So, Jeff, you've been at the school long enough now where your students that you've had at New Tech have gone to whatever path. So, what are some of the paths that they've gone after
Cool.
high school?
Yeah, great question. Kathleen would love me telling the story, but her step kids have gone into the military, and two of them that I honestly thought would go to college are now full-fledged military / firefighters, public defenders, things like that. On the other end, we have kids that I was talking to Alexis Copeland, who just graduated from IU in January. She's going in to be a paralegal into law. So, but we also have kids that are seriously in the trades. Like we have, and I'm not exaggerating, we have over 50% of our juniors and seniors not in school all day long.
Right, they go to
The
vocational.
Anthus,
Right,
yeah, they go to the
Right.
career academy or whatever.
Or ICE.
Yeah, or
working,
ICE,
working.
yeah, or working or
Right.
going to college classes. So I think it's nice to know that we are prepping them for things that they never realized they'd be ready for. Now,
Right.
there are some complaints. Ready? Roberts, why didn't you make us take more notes? Because when I went to IU and sat in the classroom, I wasn't a good note taker because you didn't make me take enough notes. So
Or they weren't, they didn't
Yeah,
know
so
about a lecture.
for the
yeah.
complaints that you have on certain things, they also say I was the best presenter in my
Right.
class. I had the best oral communication.
Fantastic writing.
Writing,
We always
yeah.
get really
Right.
good remarks on our writing.
Right. And then one of the things also that I think people need to understand is that this is like so there is a feeder school that you have, right? But people, it's like a lottery to get it. I mean, it's not an application. It's not like you take a test to get here. It's a feeder, right? And then it's a lottery, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So we only have 400 kids, and we only accept right around 100
Right.
every year.
Right.
New freshmen coming in. If you're not in the feeder, which would be tolls, then you get put into this lottery, and if you signed up and you get lucky and you get into the school, then you get that opportunity. You don't have to take it. You can always turn that down and go to whatever school you're
Right.
supposed to go to.
Right.
But and some kids do that. They don't feel like it's a good fit, and they don't come.
And clearly, I mean, your passion and commitment is evident. I mean, and then for you, and I don't know if you're involved in these, but it wasn't enough because now you also have a nonprofit Forward.
It's Forward, yeah. So
And
I had
paid-
a former student of mine, Rick Ritter, come to me, I think it was 4 years ago, and said, hey, you always taught us not to thank you, but you said pay it forward. And he's now 30 years old, so it tells you how old I am. But Rick said, would you mind taking a donation for these boys that you're mentoring? Because Josh knows that all of us teachers should be in teaching because of the kids, not because of the curriculum we teach.
Right.
And so I've always kind of mentored kids, and so he said, let me give you a donation. Long story short, I said, no way until you meet them. He comes and meets them, and all of a sudden he said, let's start a nonprofit. I'm like, no way, I got too much on my plate. Ended up being the best thing ever because my 3 kids who live in Northwest Fort Wayne don't get to see a lot of diversity. And now they're getting to be around a lot of young men of very diverse
Now,
backgrounds.
are these?
They're all
So tell us what this is.
Okay, so Forward is New Tech kids. So there's
Okay.
28 kids.
Okay.
Well, that kind of wasn't enough. They're only boys, and so we started getting approached about having females.
Right.
And I said no, that would be very hard for me to do the mentoring process, blah, blah, blah. So I had this idea of creating a leadership summit that was focused on empowering young adults to determine what their personal brand is and then connect it to leadership. So we started a second group
Which is the paved.
with the Pave the Path, which I'm thankful for partners. Believe in a Dream has been around this is their 10th year, and they're a nonprofit in Fort Wayne. And Believe in a Dream has the same goal as mine and Rick is to impact our youth to become good leaders and eventually become entrepreneurs, and the idea of interpersonal and intrapersonal, where you can be able to market yourself or you can actually become an entrepreneur.
Right.
So that's been 3 years in a running, and we have 350 kids in that program, and that's
That's beyond just
that's
the
beyond
kids.
Fort Wayne Community Schools. That's Southwest Allen, Northwest Allen.
And when do you do this program?
Yeah, that's another thing. So I find time every Thursday is my time where it's cool though. I would have to say I sit here and go, man, there's a lot on my plate. But then I look at normally 2 of my sons, my 15-year-old, my 12-year-old, are sitting somewhere near me when I'm having these meetings every Thursday night with kids. And so
Are they starting to mentor younger kids? And
Yeah, oh yeah. So the kids that have been in our program 3 years are now, there's 55 of them, and they give back in various ways, and a lot of them is teach back to our freshman group. So we have freshmen all the way up to now we have kids in college that are, in Pave the Path. And my sons are getting to see what they do, and then, my son Chase is actually going to be in Pave the Path next year because he's old enough to be in it. And I'm excited about that because he sat back and watched kids develop themselves. So we're not paving their path, they're paving their own path. We're just helping. Josh,
you give them the tools. so
yeah,
that
which
they
is
can
cool
pay.
because like, not gonna lie, like there's a lot of work that I do, but there's a lot of passion. But it's cool because I'm supported by a ton of my friends.
Right.
Like, to
I
be
don't think
honest with
people
you,
can say no to you.
I hope not. Like, like Josh has done video. Like, if you go on our website, Josh has done all the videos, like, for free, pro bono work. You know, a lot of the people that have been in Josh and I's classroom are now, you know, giving back to Pave the Path in the form of mentoring and, you know, giving back. But, you know, it's something that I would hope, like I was taught by my parents, like, impact those around you before you worry about yourself.
Right.
So put everybody else
Right.
first. And then see what happens. The problem is,
But it's
like
really,
the lack of sleep, and
but
things
it's
like
really,
that.
I mean, I think that you really demonstrate the passion and energy and enthusiasm. I mean, you could see how it's contagious for the students, but also, you know, you sort of, because you know, I only hear about are the negative things about what kids in schools, and
yeah.
you know, and to see that you really, what you're doing and how excited you are is really.
I just want to say, like, the cool part is the passion that is around me every single day at New Tech with the staff and the students. And to be honest with you, when you walk into Wayne, and I talk to Gaskell, Rare, I mean, they're just as passionate about what they are doing. And I think if you're going into education, you have a servant's heart. And I think that is the whole goal every single day, is like, my passion comes from this dude when he's like, hey, go do it, you got it. Like, and I think that's the supportive nature in education, is like, we were brought up to educate kids, but really to be support mechanisms for every single group. So I'm very thankful to be in the position I am, but also know that my passion is fed by people around me.
Right.
And thank God I got an amazing wife that does all my marketing.
Is she an educator as well?
No, but she's the vice president of creative at Asher Agency, but she's my support. She go do it, and you would think, like, don't go do that, you don't have time, but she's like, go get it. Like, if you want your kids to see something.
Is she helping all the kids with their businesses for the branding and marketing
Oh,
and
she
advertising?
does usually. She does,
usually
and
she's
she does all the logos and the
Right.
marketing for Pave the Path and
Right.
Forward. So
Okay.
everything you see on there, the website design is all hers. But like Steve Franks, thank God for him,
Yep.
and Jamal Robinson, and my brother. I can go on and on, but like, I'm just thankful for the community of Fort Wayne. You know as well as I
Right.
do. Josh knows. Like, man, thank goodness we have good people in a good community that are looking to constantly give back. And there's people that tell me no, but the next time they say yes because
I don't
they
know.
want
I
to
don't think
help.
too
So-
many people say.
Oh, they
you know,
do.
You'd be surprised.
So at the end of each And Good Company, I ask guests the same 12 questions that French novelist Marcel Proust popularized from a popular Victorian game, parlor game. Okay, what is your favorite word?
Man, that's tough. I know what my favorite German word is.
Okay.
My favorite word, I would probably say, is motivation.
Okay. What's your favorite word?
Mine's empathy.
What's your least favorite word?
Oh, can't.
We'll go with won't.
Okay.
I don't know if we're allowed to touch.
This is not like a
Yeah,
game show here. You're not.
I thought we were doing some married couple things. We feel like
This
that.
is like a game show.
we do.
Okay. Well, you can see the chemistry.
Yeah.
What turns you
Unfortunately.
on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I'm gonna go with my family.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Oh, definitely my family. I feed off my sons and my wife like every single day. Like, if they're in a good mood the morning, I am, and I
Right.
think spiritually, it definitely falls in that category.
And
sure.
what turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
That's a great question. I think when people doubt, you know, what you're about and what you're going to do, I think that turns me off. I think like those aspects of I can't do mentality, like I was saying before, when someone throws the word doubt, I question that.
Mine's negativity. So if you're negative around me, that
Okay.
is not a turn on at all.
What sound or noise do you love?
Want me to answer for you?
Okay, go ahead.
His kids laugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I'll be honest with you, like when he's on the phone with Jamie.
I talk to my kids every single day.
Like
Yeah.
today after school, the minute
Yep.
they start giggling, you can tell his mentality changes.
It's
And
true.
what sound or noise do you love?
Whew. I would love to say silence,
Okay.
You don't
But
ever get that.
no, I like when things are chaotic and there's constant noise, but it seems like it's like the happiness thing that you're
Okay,
saying.
right.
Like there's some kind of feel you get from it.
Okay.
But no, noise is. I
Okay.
love when things are loud.
And what sound or noise do you hate?
I got this one for
Okay.
me. I hate the sound of ice being crunched. Hate it.
Oh, like people.
Yeah, I hate that. So don't crunch ice around me, just so you know.
Really?
I hate that
See,
sound.
you're even learning things about each other.
I hate that sound.
Man, I don't like slurping, to be honest with you. Like,
Okay.
slurping really bothers me because I know they're enjoying something and I'm not. And I'm not, so.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Boy. I love sports. The one thing I always wanted to do is to be a part of either a sports agent or own my own sports, group, but definitely somewhere
Okay.
in the sports
Sports,
marketing
okay.
or sports management.
Okay.
So something that if I could attempt anything,
Yeah.
I would love to be a pilot.
Okay.
Woo!
And what profession would you not like to do?
Sewer worker? I don't know.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I would say quickly anything in the medical field.
Okay.
True.
There's so much they have to deal with, and
Okay.
I know trying to wear multiple
Yeah.
hats is a difficulty. But when you put people's lives, anything,
Okay.
public,
Sure.
personal responder, something like that, I
Be
don't
very
think I could do.
difficult.
Yeah,
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
being a dad,
Yep. Me too.
straight
Okay.
up being a dad.
Absolutely.
Who, living or dead, would you most like to have a conversation with?
It's a
I'll
great
do it.
question. Go
Uh,
ahead.
I get emotional on this because he's
Oh.
pretty much he was my best friend, and he kind of was my father-in-law Vic, because like I miss like his laughter and things. So I'd love just to, because when he passed, he used to call me a big baby because he thought I couldn't. I complained about starting these nonprofits, and he said, "Do it, just go ahead and do it." And I'd like to just like tell him like, "Holy, like look what's going on."
That
So
you
it
did it.
definitely would be no one famous. It would be Vic.
Okay.
If I'm gonna pick, so mine too is a personal connection here, and I mean he probably doesn't know as much as he has to me, but my dad supports me in everything I do, always has, and has always pushed me to go and do whatever I want, and so I mean I talk to him every single day after school on the way home, and just
Good for
because
you.
I like to have that conversation
Right.
every day, so
That's great.
yeah.
How would you like to die?
I would like to die where I don't know that I'm dying. So like in my sleep or something,
Okay,
where I
okay.
just don't wake
All
up.
right.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
If
same.
heaven exists,
Oh,
what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
congrats! You did what I asked. You
Yep.
followed in my footsteps. You followed in the footsteps of the Word. You always put people first, and that's what I'd love to hear him say.
I would like to hear good work and here's your family that's passed before you.
Nice.
Well, I have to say that I have really enjoyed this conversation, and just you have really enthused me about students and teaching and how we're creating the next generation of leaders. So I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication, because I think that you do a job that, well, now more parents recognize how hard it is because they all have had to be doing
Yes,
it. But
True.
Yes.
so you can learn more about Ann Good Company and all the other great conversations we have had at anngoodcompany.info. We look forward to next week when we again invite you to enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company. That's it.